Welcome to Establishment Exiles. This is the fourth episode of the podcast. My name is Mike Figueredo, and today on the show we have Elise. Welcome back, Elise.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
Good to see you. Good to see you. We also have Kevin, veteran to Establishment Exiles.
Hello, everybody.
Perfect attendance of Kevin, by the way. Hasn't missed the show, so kudos to you. We also have Ron Placone back. Hello, Ron.
What's up? Good to see you again. Good to be back, everybody.
Good to have you. And of course, we have our special guest, Tim Black, host of Tim Black TV and Coffee with Tim Black. You know who it is. Give it up for Tim Black, everyone. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Yeah.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Mike. Appreciate it, guys.
Hey, we are absolutely glad to have you. So I got to check in with you, first of all, Tim, because you host the show, and you and I both know that this hasn't been the funnest week to talk about news. So how are you coping with everything, and how's the show been just in general?
Dude, look, it's crazy. I just came off talking about freaking Libya slave trade. So I'm I'm really glad to be around you guys so we can talk about something a little bit different. But yeah, man, it's been a heavy week, man. You know, what can I tell you? It's been bad news after bad news. And, you know, I just try to give the people what they want, which is a conversation about something, and try to make it entertaining. But it's hard to clean this shit up, man. It's so horrible. It really is.
Yeah. Right. I mean, this week we got net neutrality basically. Well, I mean, that was last week as well, but this is an ongoing battle. Net neutrality being attacked. We have a looming tax bill that might be voted on this week and most likely will pass. It's a fucked up time to live in America, pretty much. It sucks. So I wanted to kind of start the discussion about net neutrality because this is something that a lot of people are interested about. Ron, I know that on the Jimmy Dore show, you did a really great job of explaining what net neutrality is and why it's important.
Oh, thanks, Mike.
You were on point. I can't even lie.
Swell of you to say. Thanks,
well, of course. Do you want to?
I'm petting my cat. I feel so good right now.
Do you really have your cat with you?
Yeah, she's right here. Look, Lucy.
Oh,
say hi, Lucy. Say hi to the internet, sweetie.
I should have brought my cat now, but she doesn't like me.
We should make it a thing. I think that's got to be a new Establishment Exiles thing. Like cats are the only thing we're allowed to have because we're exiled.
I like this, but it's going to be embarrassing because my cat does not want anything to do with me. She loves my husband. She refuses to sit on my lap. She'll tolerate letting me pet her, but she's not a big fan. But I would bring her on the show. It would be fun.
You just gotta have the right whisper, Mike. It takes time. I think you can do it. But yeah, net neutrality. So I mean, the battle for net neutrality has been going on for a very, very long time. And I think the big thing that I pointed out in that Jimmy Dore show video that a lot of people have given some positive feedback on was when I said, look, the whole anti-net neutrality argument where people are like, well, we've only had it since 2015. So was the internet really that different before 2015? That's a very misleading, to say the least, sentiment. Is it an outright lie? Well, technically no, but it's a very, very misleading sentiment. And here's why. The idea of net neutrality has been around since about 2005. It was instilled by the FCC. It wasn't officially concrete because we didn't have a Title II designation for the internet. So what organizations like Free Press and the Electronic Foundation and all those digital rights groups were going for was that Title II designation, saying, hey, this isn't super secure. That's why eventually the cable companies went to court and so forth, and then it was declared, well, the FCC can't do this, but if you make the internet a Title II, then you can enforce net neutrality. So after the public twisted Barack Obama's arm and twisted Tom Wheeler's arm, and keep in mind, Tom Wheeler didn't want to do this. Tom Wheeler was a cable lobbyist, not quite to the extent of AG Pie, but not super far off. But we got the net neutrality protections that we needed. So really, this has been an ongoing battle. And for them to overturn this, they're going to gut the internet as we know it since its inception. I mean, this is something they're going to have to convince the courts that we need a total overhaul of the way we do internet commerce. And they don't have a very good economic argument because the majority of commerce on the internet, in fact, pretty much all of it, benefits from net neutrality rules. What are the only exceptions to that? Well, the ISPs themselves. And guess what? With their criminal organized duopolies, they're making a plenty of money.
Yeah. And the thing about this is, You explain that very clearly, and you have the facts on your side. But when you listen to Ajit Pai speak, if you watch any of his recent interviews with Fox News, he's saying basically the same thing that you're saying. But his argument is that repealing net neutrality facilitates, a free and open internet. I don't know if you've caught any of this, Tim, but Ajit Pai is tap dancing around the issue. He won't say the words throttling, but basically he does use that term, free and open internet. And I know that Brendan Carr, another FCC commissioner who will be gutting net neutrality, says the same term. So how do you feel, Tim? Because you run a website, you have multiple podcasts. As someone who does independent media and you produce multiple shows, how do you think this would affect your show?
Well, it's in light of all the censorship that we deal with on a daily basis, all of us on all our platforms, social media, or on your websites, in light of the content that we discuss, that I know, like when I'm talking about issues that I know that the government doesn't want me to talk about, when I'm actually uncovering things about the DNC, I'm always thinking, gosh, man, if they repeal net neutrality, in fact, I said it tonight, it's crazy that we're bringing this up on the show. I didn't know the topics would be this. I said, wow, guys, if they only knew if net neutrality goes away, they would definitely throttle this conversation. Like, they do not want this on their airways. And if there's any way, they would give pretty much any other type of content precedence over me talking about Libyan slaves or talking about Hillary and Obama signing that shit. Like, that's so. I'm like you, and I realize the importance of free and open internet. I don't even know how Geek can make that claim that it's free and open by what? Making it so that ISPs can make even more money? How is that free and open? It's a monopoly they have.
Yep.
It's the freedom to make the most amount of money possible.
Oh,
that's the beauty of the capitalist system. It's always about the bottom line. It's always about maximizing profits. And at least personally, for me, the net neutrality issue is more of a symptom of a dysfunctional government that no longer works for the people. Because 97% of the American people do not want this to be passed. So the fact that this is even being considered and that it's probably going to pass is just like, what does that say about our government? That's my question, because it's a little bit startling.
Yeah, that's such a great point that you bring up about the 97%. And when you look at polls, I mean, the overwhelming majority of people, they support net neutrality. And when you look at the 22 million comments that were submitted to the FCC, which, mind you, is record breaking, if you just take out the individual comments where people wrote down what they think about net neutrality, and you exclude the fake comments, you exclude the forms that people just click submit. If you look at just those comments, then 98.5% find that they support net neutrality. But yet I just did an article, or actually I covered an article on my show that will be coming out in the next couple of days in a video form, about how Ajit Pai actually doesn't care. He literally doesn't care. Someone from the FCC said that the comments have no bearing on his decision. And the same is true for Mike O'Reilly and Brendan Carr, the other two Republican commissioners, because even though this effort is being spearheaded by Ajit Pai, I mean, he couldn't do this without the help of his other goons on the FCC, who are also industry shills. So it's incredibly frustrating. Now, I want to go to Kevin, because you're starting a new podcast yourself. You have the progressive experience. Yeah. So what a shitty time to start a podcast. So how do you feel personally about net neutrality and how this would affect you? Do you feel as though, there's a big enough window to where you can kind of get in there and grow? Or do you feel like you're threatened by this?
Yeah, I actually just started my show a couple weeks ago, actually. So I just had my second show yesterday. And it has been a really weird feeling. I've noticed that a lot of my videos are already getting demonetized. That's already pretty disheartening.
Yeah, that's one issue you got to deal with right off the bat.
Yeah, that's aside from net neutrality. That's just YouTube in general. And that's, I'm sure Tim Black can speak to that. I know, Kyle Kalinske, all these different people can speak to that. I know you can speak to that, Mike. But, as a newbie in this game, it's a really, really weird thing. And it's totally strange to walk in on it at this moment and see how it's already becoming worse before it's even getting better. It's not even close to getting better. It's already getting worse. And, I can't even I'm not really able to enjoy all the perks of what it is to really be a podcast host. But you know what? You got to make the best out of it. And you know, we're independent media. You know, we got to rely on our listeners. You know, that's why we have Patreon. I know all you guys have Patreon. You know, like that's a really useful tool to get by in this kind of industry. You know, I've always said that I don't want to go out there and work in corporate media because I have a broadcasting degree and I graduated with a broadcasting degree. So do I want to go work for ESPN? No, not really. Do I want to go work for MSNBC? No, not really. Do I want to go work for all those networks? No. It just doesn't appeal to me. So doing my own thing, being my own boss is a hell of a lot better than doing those things.
Now, speaking of MSNBC, you kind of primed me to think of something that happened with one of their hosts recently, the fabulous Joy Reid, who we're all a huge fan of, I'm sure. Who wants to explain this? Because I didn't cover this on my show, so I'm sure that somebody else would be more versed in it. Basically, she smeared Bernie Sanders' wife. Does anyone want to explain this situation in particular?
I just posted about it on my page. Basically, what happened was Joy was on Twitter and she was responding to some comment that somebody left, and she said something along the lines of like, "Oh, well, Bernie doesn't treat his wife that well," or something.
Can we read the exact tweet? I'm going to read the exact tweet. I think it deserves it.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But first, give the background.
Pulling it up right now.
First,
Go ahead.
Let's give a little bit of the background of what happened. First, it was a conversation that she was having about all of the sexual allegations that were coming out. And so the concept was, you know, there's really, with these revelations, there exists less men that can really hold powerful positions of power, and be taken seriously and be looked upon as being thought leaders or whatever in the community or in the world, actually, in the U.S. And someone then interjected, well, what about Bernie Sanders? He's a guy, he's got a penis, and he's not a horrible individual. And then that's when it kind of went off the rails, because that's when Joy comes in.
So this is what Joy said after what Tim described. And I'll try to do my best Joy Reid impersonation.
That would be amazing.
I mean, she's actually not easy to impersonate because she's she speaks well. You know, she's very eloquent. She has a normal
she's
voice.
very smart.
Yeah.
She is very smart. That's what kind of kills it.
Yeah.
So she goes, I get that he has a hardcore following, but his own attitudes toward women, from his weird early writings to his physical dismissal of women in his present, including his own wife, make that an incredibly dubious prospect.
What is with their obsession with these rape essays? Like, get over it, bro. That happened how many years ago? Like, they're still obsessing over
1972.
Jesus.
It doesn't matter. There's no what do they call that? There's no
statute of limitations.
Yes, statute of limitations with any of this stuff. And anyway, their stories. And then I was actually really shocked that Jane engaged with Joy on this one, because Joy doesn't even deserve to be given energy, and it even feels bad for me that we're giving this woman any kind of space. But
it was beautiful though. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Back. Jane does not let this slide. You're gonna fuck with Bernie? Hell no.
Really? Yeah, really.
Done it for a year now, and Jane's just had enough of Joy. So she answers. I didn't answer your biased reporting about Bernie during the last 2 years, Joy Reid. But don't ever use me to demean my husband. I am very happy and very proud to be Bernie's wife. Preach, girl.
Damn right.
Your perception couldn't be more wrong. Have you ever talked with him? No. You've never spoken with me. Boom.
Damn.
She broke the internet today. Broke the internet. I mean that, like, not Kim Kardashian's ass broke the internet, but broke the internet in a political kind of way.
I'm just imagining the conversation between Bernie Sanders and Jane, where he's like, just ignore it. And she's like, no, fuck that. I'm tired of this bullshit. Like,
exactly, because Bernie is so good about not giving that, the salacious distraction any type of engagement, because he does believe that it takes away from the issue at hand that are so much more obviously pressing. But yeah, Jane was not going to let this slide by. But I was thinking the same exact thing as you, Mike, because I know Bernie was definitely against this.
Yeah.
But she was like, no, I'm an independent woman, and this is what I get to do. So good for her. Good for her.
Well, and
maybe we get to talk about Joy Reid and give people context, because Joy Reid is just a propagandist, essentially.
Yeah, I would, because I was going to say, this is just another example of that whole thing where these establishment talking heads and, you know, getting on Joy Reid. I mean, back in 2008, Joy Reid was way more progressive. She was really against the way Hillary Clinton was behaving throughout that primary. She, you know, was singing a much different tune. And then MSNBC set her mind right, and she kind of became what she is today. So yeah, she's a very smart woman who does know exactly what she's doing, and also knows that when it comes to policy, she has no leg to stand on. And I think most people in the establishment realize that when it comes to actual policy, they can't go toe-to-toe with actual progressives. They can't be like, no, fracking's okay. No, the military-industrial complex is nothing to worry about. Living wages, that's overrated. The Constitution was written so that high school kids could have some extra spending money. You know, free college, that's no big deal either. What could go wrong if education is a tool reserved for the elite? Nothing. I can't think of any time in history where that backfired. So the establishment has nothing to stand on, so they need to go after these just bogus personal identity political attacks that have no merit. So they have to throw around terms like sexist, like racist. And these are serious accusations, and these are serious terms. And these are some very, very real issues. And they diminish these issues by crying wolf and saying that progressives are sexist and are racist when in fact they are not. And it's not only is it irresponsible, but it's hurting our discourse. It's hurting us evolving as a people. And that's why I feel like a lot of these establishment hacks are a bigger hurt to progress than the right wing, because at least with the right wing, we know what the opposition is.
Yeah, that's true. And everybody, if nobody's keeping track of this, this is the 7-year anniversary of when Joy Reid did actually praise Bernie Sanders on Twitter. She praised him and said, she said, revising my tweet from yesterday, the great clarion voice in the Democratic Party is Bernie Sanders, and he'll be ignored just like Dean, referring to Howard Dean. Like,
so
how
she was
fitting
just
is
celebrating the anniversary.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We had all this wrong. She was.
That tweet didn't age very well.
But what is it about
wonderfully?
Like Bernie Sanders? Sorry, Kevin, were you speaking?
No. Go ahead.
But I was going to say, what is it about people like Bernie Sanders and that really ignites something within Joy Reid that she spends a career demeaning someone that fundamentally wants to advance progressive issues that she, quote unquote, claims to care about? What does he threaten for her?
A paycheck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you think it's a financial thing?
Oh, absolutely.
No, I don't think it's a financial thing. I think it's more of like how dare you, mess with the system that we got going on here. How dare you mess that up? We fixed it so it could be good for Joy Reid. It could be good for Rachel Maddow. It could be good for Chris Hayes. It could be good for all those people. But this Bernie Sanders guy, this motherfucker coming in here fucking it all up, we can't have that,
No, I think it's very easy to not understand a problem if your paycheck depends on you not understanding it. That's why, tying it into our first issue, listen to anybody on MSNBC talk about net neutrality on the 1 or 2 segments that they did about it over years. They pretend to not understand it, which these people understand net neutrality. It's not rocket science. There are a lot of complexities in it, but it's not rocket science. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely a financial thing. It's a big payday. And they know where they can and can't go. They know what they can and can't say. And they're happy to toe that line because I think a lot of these people in establishment media, either they're not really concerned about journalism, or they used to be, or they never were. And they're okay with with kind of like the circumference they're in, or they're comfortable enough to the point where, their kind of guilt only shines through a little bit. Chris Hayes has to be drunk to start apologizing to Josh Fox.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ron, because look, the thing about the left is that most of these people, they're on the same side of our ideology. Like they get, like I would consider Joy, a centrist, but she's on the left of the center column, right? So She gets it. She understands the issues. She understands the issues that we fight for. But she makes a tactical decision that this is the direction that you need to go in order to maintain a paycheck. Look at what they did to Ed Schultz. This guy starts speaking out of class, talking about the TPP. Now he no longer has a job. Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid and Chris Hayes, they know what time it is. You can easily disappear. Melissa Harris Perry, and she started talking, and next thing you know, bye, Melissa. Like, that's it. You know, so when I say a paycheck, I mean, they want to maintain and they want to grow, and this is the way you do it, by kissing ass and by throwing Bernie under the bus, because he threatens the Democrats because he exposes the Democratic Party for what it is, neoliberalism.
But it's interesting because those names that you mentioned, Melissa Harris Perry, you know, Keith Olbermann, even, you know, Ed Schultz, all these people are all Democratic Party apologists anyway. When I was watching them, I was watching those people back in the day, in the heyday of MSNBC. And these people all love the Democratic Party. But all of a sudden, Ed Schultz, just a little bit off, you know, didn't do exactly what the Democrats want, and you're gone. And it's like, it's ridiculous. And I've noticed that Chris Hayes is the main guy out there that he walks that line just perfectly, where he'll say something like sane every now and then, but he knows where he's at. You know, he knows where his bread is buttered, essentially. So
this is what I think it is, because I say the same thing about Fox News. So I think it probably extends to MSNBC and CNN as well. I think that these outlets, they serve as the propaganda wings of each party. So what they say is, it can't be too offensive, because if you offend the Republican Party's donors, those same people who donate to the party, they advertise on these television channels. So there's that financial incentive to not piss off too many people, not overturn the apple cart or whatever that saying is. They can't do anything that would encourage the Democratic Party to move to the left, to adopt Medicare for all or anything like that, because then these insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies, they wouldn't advertise on MSNBC if they see the message that they're pushing, for example. So that's what I think it is as well. Like, I just can't, like, for people like Joy Reid, I can't chalk it up to ignorance, because she's not ignorant at all. She's very intelligent. And I think that even though she is wrong on the issues, if I were to debate her, I think she might actually prevail as the winner, just because she's very intelligent and she knows how to word things in a way that are persuasive. So, for example, when she talks about Republicans, she does a really powerful job at debunking their bullshit. The problem is that she's unwilling to be introspective about her own party, and that's because I think she knows, like Tim Black said, you know, Ed Schultz and whatnot, these people, Ed Schultz just pushed a little bit too hard, you know, against the TPP. He had to go. So, I mean, if she does anything to piss off the Democratic Party and their donors, then that could be a career-ending mistake, and I think she's aware of this.
Yeah.
What's that billionaire's name who kind of blew open the barnyard doors, man? He's like, look, if you guys say anything else about rich people, I'm taking all my money.
Steve Klobuchar. Steve Klobuchar.
No, it's Steve No-Neck.
Yeah, that guy's a douchebag. I don't even know how that guy.
I don't understand how that video in itself, it's literally, he went on television and basically said he has bought the entire Democratic Party, like the entire leadership, and how that was not news everywhere, and how even the anchor that was, I don't know who was interviewing him,
Stephanie Rule,
yeah, and how that
she was like, "You're my
really
best friend."
It wasn't like, wait, hold on a second. I heard that you're implying that you've basically bought these politicians. Is that true?
She's friends with
anchors in America. Yeah, anchors in America do not do that. I don't know if you guys watched, you know, any kind of TV station from any other part of the world, but I watch the UK quite a bit, right? Like Channel 1 News and Channel 4 News. And even if you look at somebody who I don't like at all, like Piers Morgan, okay? He did have a stint on CNN, but I was watching this recently, and it was him. He invited a pro-gun guy, like a gun rights advocate, and he took him to town.
When was this?
Like, this guy was just spewing. This was, I think, after Las Vegas. Okay. And this guy was like, well, you know, he was just spewing bullshit. And he just called him out. Straight out, and he said, you are lying. That is not true. And you constantly see anchors. I mean, obviously, Piers Morgan isn't a perfect example of this. But you do see anchors that challenge their guests, especially those that are powerful. And that is the point of journalism, right? It is to challenge power rather than just to reinforce and uplift those in power, rather than going to restaurants with those in power, which is what, you know, mainstream journalism is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know about any of you guys, but I've noticed this terrible uptick of, at least on Twitter, I don't know about everywhere else, but this terrible uptick of people just like getting outraged about Trump doing stupid things. Like the other day, there was an article that came out where, oh my God, Trump drinks water really weird.
Seriously?
And I'm like, what?
Oh yeah, I saw that
No.
water one. But that was funny because of the Marco Rubio thing. Do you remember that?
Yeah, no, I get it. But
Yeah,
then
it's
why are
comedy.
you writing an
It's
article
comedy.
about it? Though?
And
Why are
he
you writing?
always needs two hands too, so that's part of it as well.
Yeah,
You
okay,
can't
all right.
hold
I don't give a shit. I
anything
don't give a fuck.
with
I
one
agree.
Water,
with
bro.
one hand.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. But don't write a fucking article about it, okay?
I didn't. You don't have to.
No,
yell
not
at me.
you. I know.
I didn't.
But
And
this is
why are you
why
guys
they-
being so hard on Piers Morgan? I think he's charming.
You notice how much, I don't know if you've ever seen any kind of any of the Piers Morgan show that he hosts in the UK, but his co-host hates him, and it's just really funny.
Oh yeah, we did a video
He
on that
hates
once.
him.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta say,
it gets so awkward. It's almost like it's like a BBC4 comedy show, almost like how awkward it gets between them. And then you're like, oh yeah, she really does not like being on the air with him at all.
now I have to check that out. And to answer Kevin's question as to why they write articles about Donald Trump drinking water, because now that you told me about it, I want to go read it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
it pulled me in. And I got to say something about Stephen Nonek before we move on. I was going to say Klubeck, but actually it just instinctively I said Nonek.
Go on.
No, keep it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so before I covered that story, I actually looked at his Twitter, and every time I talk about someone and really focus heavily on them on my show, I'll check their Twitter account, because I try not to focus on people who don't have a huge following, because always, you know, people will tweet my video to them and they're going to see it, and I don't want to piss anybody off, and I don't want them to get any harassment or anything like that. And so Stephen Klubeck had about 2,500 followers, which is quite a bit. So I'm like, okay, I could do a video because he might not see it if a bunch of people tweet my video to him. And not that I care, but I don't want people to feel like I'm an asshole and I'm attacking him, because I was pretty savage in that video, not to toot my own horn, but I was fucking pissed. But anyways, now when you look at his Twitter account, he has 10,000 followers. All of a sudden in these last couple of weeks, 3/4 of his followers are people who hate him, like you and I follow him.
So you got him an 8,000 person Twitter. When you
He just magnified his voice.
Yeah,
well, not necessarily me only.
Can you do an angry video about me?
Yeah, really.
Like, I want a figure eight bump too.
Right. Well,
I'm sure I could do something that pisses you off. I'm sure I have. You could watch some of my old stand-up from like 2008. Be like, oh God, I can't get that 3 minutes of my life back. What the fuck? And then I'll get a bump.
You can come out as an anti-beard bigot, Ron, and then I would have to rebuke everything that you're saying.
Everybody cool is shaving these days. I shave.
You know, just to speak to that point about the Trump drinking water, you saw what happened with Jimmy Fallon when he stopped talking about Trump, right? So they released the ratings of Jimmy Fallon, man. Jimmy Kimmel passed him in the ratings. Like, he was killing it.
Okay.
Yeah, and he made a decision that he would no longer talk about Trump and talk about politics, and he went down. And now he's like, look, I don't like politics. I like pop culture. That's what I like talking about. Wow. And I don't want to talk about Trump. So you pay a price if you don't talk about Trump. So a lot of the market is moving that way just because it's so lucrative, bro.
I actually think there's a positive message in that, for instance, though, because I don't think it's so much just Trump. I think it's that Jimmy Fallon decided he didn't really want to stand for anything. Whereas Jimmy Kimmel has, and it goes beyond just like, well, making fun of Trump did something goofy on Twitter. You know, Jimmy Kimmel has actually stood for things. You know, for instance with his kid and stuff like that. He actually stands for something. And in a very heightened political time, people don't want milquetoast. They don't want like total, oh, I'm just going to be neutral and I don't care and apathy's fun. Like, people don't want that. And you know what? Maybe if the year was 2015 or 2014, it might be the other way around, where Fallon might have shot up and Kimmel might have went down. But we're not in that time anymore, and I kind of hope the awakening is a permanent thing.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Me too. Absolutely.
Maybe so, bro. I just know what the numbers did to him. Maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe later this will be the right tact. If he moves now, he'll pay later. I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, if you were going to watch a late night show and we're like, well, this guy doesn't really feel strongly about anything and doesn't give a shit. This other guy has something to say. Which one would you put on?
True. That's true.
Yeah, I think that we're all better off, though, with Jimmy Fallon not talking about politics, because he is someone who doesn't really have a core ideology. I think you guys are right about him being, kind of milquetoast, I guess, if you want to use that word. So when Chris Christie was on before the 2016 election, he was basically begging Chris Christie to run. And then he had Obama on. He was doing a song about the TPP, trying to sell people the TPP. He did the thank you cards to Hillary Clinton. So he doesn't have a core philosophy. He just is all about kissing the ass of the establishment in general. And it drives me nuts. So I'm glad that he's not talking politics.
A lot of people say Jay Leno was like that. I was a big Jay Leno fan, but I heard my mom would tell me that he was always like a company man. I don't know if any of you guys noticed that too, but
isn't he doing car videos now?
Yeah, he is. He's doing like car. He's doing like a car show because he's a big car collector. So like a classic car collector. But yeah, I don't know. He kind of. I mean, I loved his comedy, but he was constantly kissing Bush's ass. He was constantly kissing Obama's ass. I mean, like he was just kissing everybody's ass from every corner. So it's like, I don't know.
He's the CNN of late night hosts.
Right. Yeah. I like his comedy though. His comedy was really funny. I loved the headlines gig. I don't know. I don't know if Ron, I'm sure you can speak to this, but I thought Leno's headlines bit was always really funny, and all those things that he would do.
I mean, I'm just going by memory. I never really had, I mean, I would watch it occasionally. The whole thing is just, and that's why I was floored when I saw that thank you letter to Hillary Clinton thing. And not even just because it was Hillary, but because I always thought the point of comedy or social commentary or whatever is to kind of critique the powerful and kind of look at things from a different lens, not kind of cheerlead for anything. And I thought that was so bizarre. And I realized that there were people sitting in a writing room that were told to do that were told, you're going to write a thank you letter to Hillary Clinton. What do you mean? Like a satirical one? No, a sincere one. Like you're writing a thank you letter to her.
I think
if you, not even making it about take Hillary Clinton's name out, put in someone I like, put in Bernie Sanders. You're going to write a thank you letter to Bernie Sanders. Like, what do you mean? Just a thank you. I'm like, that's not my job. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we're supposed to be doing here.
I think the most insufferable comedian right now is Samantha Bee. And
oh, Jesus Christ. Talk about horrible. What's wrong with liberals.
I mean, she was really good when she was on The Daily Show. I don't know what happened.
I agree with that. Now she got a whiff of the smell of her own farts and she loves it.
Yeah, exactly. She's like this feminist icon. I'm like, oh my God, please just do regular comedy. Stop doing this ideological comedy.
See, I've not watched. I'm totally unfamiliar with her work. I have no opinion one way or the other. And Samantha, if you're watching this and you pay your writers well, I'm still available. I've never seen your work, so I don't know. No opinion. No, I've never watched the show, so I have no clue. I honestly don't.
Yeah, she totes the Democratic Party line. Every time.
All right. Well, Samantha, you can hire me and I'll last a week. There's a solid week where you'll be happy with my output.
But it's more that she's kind of an emblem for everything that people rightfully hate about liberals.
Yeah,
there you go.
She's so patronizing and just so self-righteous. And the way that she speaks about it, it's like I am the queen of the truth and only I know everything. And if you don't agree with me, then you must be a stupid redneck. And if you voted for Trump, then you're a racist. Like everything about her is basically why a lot of people hate liberals. And I can't blame them, to be honest with you.
Well, let me run this by you guys because I want everybody's take on this because this is something I've been entertaining. And I know I'm not the first person to come up with this sentiment, but Like, I really think that on the left, and I'm using left very broad and encompassing, it includes everybody from, you know, the establishment Democrats to us and everything in between. I think that the biggest issue now is a class division. I do think there are people on the establishment left, people that used to be colleagues of mine. They truly don't know the difference between having to survive on $12 an hour versus $15 an hour. So we did come across as quote unquote purist when we were fighting for living wages. They don't know what it's like to not have your health care just being something you can afford. They don't know what that's like. To them, every Trump voter is just some uneducated redneck going against their own interests. There really is. The Limousine Liberal is a very, very real thing. And now more than ever, we're branching away from each other because a lot of the social issues, it's kind of like, yeah, we're all on the same page there. And we know that already. It's these other things that bleed into all those social issues. Yes, we're all about women's rights. We're all pro-choice. We're all in support of the LGBT community. But when you're not in support of all these other issues that aren't important to you because you grew up with a level of privilege the rest of us can't relate to, you're still hurting the most marginalized among us and everybody else. So I think these limousine liberals, they're basically just Republican light. They have no real identity anymore. And I mean, that's the biggest divide in the left. I think it really is one of class.
I agree with that 100%. And I think that there's a lot of evidence for this when you look at the 2016 election, not to harp away on that because I talk about that a lot. We all talk about it too much, but it really does. It serves as an important example with the, especially like the George Clooney fundraiser with Hillary Clinton. When Bernie Sanders supporters were throwing dollar bills on Hillary Clinton, they claimed that that was a form of sexism, and they completely removed class from the discussion.
You're joking. I didn't hear it. They said it was sexism?
Yeah, so as her limousine or whatever drove by, they were throwing dollar bills at her because this fundraising event was like $35 a ticket if you wanted to get in. And they said that that was sexist because to throw money at a woman implies that she is like a stripper. You're demeaning her, when really it was about the corruption. So I mean, they just sucked all the discussion about class out of it, which is what this was about. And they made it seem as though Hillary Clinton, who is an oligarch, is the victim. This rich white woman has less privilege than, for example, a straight white male. That's basically the example that I always point to as when I think the Democratic Party, or at least the followers of the Democratic Party, lost their sense of class consciousness.
I think the worst moment in the public. Now, Mike's example is absolutely perfect. I think that was one of the lowest points of the left side of the spectrum for sure. Not just the Democrats, just liberals, quote unquote, in general. But to me, the worst part was when Hillary Clinton invoked 9/11 to say that she was defending Wall Street. So how dare you attack me when I was a senator from New York? And this is right on stage with Bernie Sanders right there, sitting right there, making the case that, of course, Wall Street shouldn't be getting bailed out. You shouldn't be giving these speeches where you're getting paid, $250,000, for one single speech. And she's like, well, I was there on 9/11 when, those towers collapsed. I'm like, oh my God, that is so embarrassing. Did make that argument?
Did we ever find out if Rudy Giuliani sued her for plagiarism or not? Did we ever? We never found out, did we? I've been curious for a long time. I'll share. I mean, I can share another story that's always been really two quick ones. For instances in all this that have drawn me this. I used to contribute to a show I no longer contribute to, and back when the AHCA was stopped. And, everybody in the establishment Democratic Party was saying what a hero John McCain was. And he showed them today. But anyway, people were saying what a hero John McCain was. And I was like, well, he didn't do something terrible. I don't know if we should be patting him on the back, but, at least. And so we were talking about it. And I said something along the lines of, well, it's good that it's good that they didn't do this. The ACA is not perfect. It's not a permanent solution, but it's a baby step better than where we were before. And to undo that and go even further backwards would be catastrophic, blah, blah, blah. And the host goes, and the most important thing here, and I was waiting to hear 30 million people are going to keep their health insurance. But what was actually said was, the most important thing here is that Obama won. And then they played this dumb fart noise or soundbite. I don't even remember what it was exactly. And I was like, this is a game to you. Like this is not, like, you have no idea what it's like. Like 30 million people would have been without health insurance. I mean, I get my health insurance through the ACA. Like, it's like, you have no idea what those people were going through. To you, this really is Obama won, and I feel better. Obama, quote unquote, it wasn't even Obama's plan. It was the Heritage Foundation's plan. Let's keep that in mind. And Obama didn't write. Yeah, it was Romney-Garre. Obama didn't write the plan. And then the other thing is Valerie Plame. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but this is the. I will stand by this. This is the dumbest instance of fake activism I can think of ever in my life. Valerie Plame at one point was trying to raise about $1 billion to buy Twitter so that she could kick Donald Trump off of it. She was going to buy Twitter for herself.
Wow.
And kick Trump off of it. And that was going to be that was the resistance. And I'm like, you could feed how many people? We could have universal healthcare. We could have free college. And instead, what you would do with this money is you're going to buy Twitter for yourself to later profit off of. And then you're going to kick Donald Trump off of it.
Silence.
And everybody else on this show was saying what a noble cause this is, and people should go to the GoFundMe right away, telling their listeners that are just average working class people to give this rich woman more money to do this. And I didn't get a chance to speak. They went to commercial before I had a chance to speak, and it was taking all of my self-discipline not to say this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. And I ended up not doing that just because I wasn't given the chance to. But I was just sitting there stunned. And I was like, are we in an Onion article right now? Like super privileged liberals want to buy Twitter thinking that'll solve everything? That's an Onion headline. But no, this was real life. So, yeah, I mean, these limousine fake liberals are out there. And it's just, I think it's just sad more than anything else. And I think...
I'm glad you put that in context, Ron, because I always look at it as two ways. Like, you got the establishment creatures who make a living off of the system. And I think they're a different type of limousine liberal. Like, they know what's going on. Like, they get it. It's just they have to play the role. It's all career advancement. It's all establishing their brand, keeping their brand the way it needs to be in order to be effective in the marketplace. And, like, it's all a game. That's what it is. But then you have your average person who's just brainwashed. Like, that's a whole different thing. That's I've been around liberals who say, for instance, we're talking about class. Okay, true story. I'm at the People's Convergence where I saw you at, Ron, and we hung out and we did a panel. That was real great.
That was awesome.
No doubt. And I'm talking to some people that I'm not going to name names, all right? But they're very outspoken people with platforms in the independent media liberal landscape environment. And my wife was with me, and they had never met my wife. And so I introduced her for like 2 minutes. Hey, this is my wife. Hey, how you doing? And then, okay, so later I see them and we're having a conversation. I'm like, it's great. My wife is my camera person. And, and I'm going to, hopefully I will bring her along and she will start, doing more, being more active. It's great to have her working with me. And one of these people said, yeah, Tim, you better look out because, what's going to happen. Soon she's going to be like, you're not asking the right questions. Give me that mic. Listen here, come on now. Talk to me. What's answer the question. And she's doing all of the stereotypical, like what Shanae would do on Martin back in like the 90s, the head movement and all this. And I'm like, motherfucker, my wife's she's not Shanae, motherfucker. She's a professional working for a nonprofit with a managerial position. But she saw my wife was black and just assumed this is how she conducts herself. And I told him, so we're driving home and telling my wife about it. She's like, yeah, that's so progressive. That's so progressive. So it exists. Yeah. It exists not only not only in and that's a different type of limousine liberal. That's just like to me it's bigoted.
Wow.
Yeah.
But they call themselves progressive, and when those, so you guys remember when that whole shitstorm about people not like really getting the racial components, the actual understanding of you know, you talk about, people say intersectionality, they talk about these issues, but really fundamentally, man, there's a disconnection between reality and what they think. Like they think they're right. Like if I said this to them, their feelings would be hurt because I didn't communicate. Hey, you really. You sound a little bit like Rush Limbaugh over this motherfucker. Like I wanted to say that, but I knew they didn't know, and I didn't want to go through the conversation of explaining to them how bad it sounded. So I agree with you, Ron. I agree with everyone's comments here about limousine liberals, people being out of touch, people living in bubbles, not understanding the real ramifications. The Twitter idea, buying Twitter, get the fuck, man.
I mean,
you know, let's go. Like I don't know, man. We could fix Flint with that money. Like what the fuck?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
When you were explaining that thing with your wife, for a second I was trying to figure out the implication that the person was trying to make. Like, how could you say that? Like, that's not even funny, bro. What the like?
They weren't being funny. Look, dude, I was offended like hell. Like, and I hate saying stuff like that. I'm offended, but I was like really wow, and also disappointed, right? Because this is a person, progressive, who has a following, who would tell, you know, who would point their finger at you if you said the wrong thing and tell you need to be more open-minded or whatever.
But it's like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like the implication is like, so this black woman is going to act like a black woman. Like that's basically what that person is saying. Like, so stupid.
My wife's like the opposite. She's like introverted. Yeah. She hates being in front of cameras. She's not. We're opposites. Like I'm the one. Like she would never want to do this. She would never want to be like, what'd you say? No, you didn't. No, you know. I'm like, what? You think that? So I'm not trying to hijack the conversation. That's why I let you know with so many fronts where this type of shit exists.
Well, Tim, I'll have to let you know that you didn't introduce me to your wife at all, and it kind of hurts my feelings. I'll be okay.
I was going to say that this reminds me of a conversation that I was having with a friend who I believe supported Bernie Sanders in the primaries and then obviously went for Hillary in the general, and thinks that conversations like the ones that we're having, where we're talking about the liberal left divide, where we are calling out our own, are just representative of this divide and conquer strategy that will eventually lead to Republicans actually exerting more control and winning while we fight amongst ourselves. Right? So what do you guys say to that?
No, that's bullshit. I don't even believe in that.
Yeah, what do we win if we don't fix like
our side?
You know, it's like The Walking Dead, right? Like they're going through that now. Like, hold up, what are we becoming? Hold on now, we're killing these guys, but now we become those guys. Like that's not saving civilization. That's surviving, but it's not the way we want to win.
So the thing with me is I've been running my own Facebook page where I manage a lot of like my social media connections with all different kinds of people. I have a bunch of followers on that page, following that page. And for, I would say roughly 2 years or so, I had just like wall-to-wall Democratic loyalists, Obama-loving, Hillary-loving, blah, 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 all those kinds of people. Like your stereotypical Democratic loyalist follower. And then all of a sudden, I just switched it on everybody, and I started becoming a little bit anti-Democrat, a little bit anti-establishment. And then people were like, "Oh my God, how dare you? How dare you cover, you know, how terrible Obama's, you know, drone striking in Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen is? How dare you talk about how, you know, the Democrats are just as corrupt as the Republicans?" Like, you know, so on and so forth. All the stuff we're dealing with today, all of us progressives are dealing with today. Back then, mentioning it about a year ago or so, people were like, they were just flabbergasted. They were like, "How dare you? How could you do that? You're hurting our side. I can't believe you're doing this." And then they started unliking my page, and I basically had to say, "Fuck off. Okay, get the hell out of here, and I don't want to deal with you anyway." So
my question is, like, what kind of conversations are actually constructive and useful and will help the movement rather than it being petty is what I want to know. I don't know the answer. I'm just asking you guys.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that as well. But I do think that you are, or your friend was bringing up something that is actually important, because I will admit that I think that so long as the left being progressives and the center left are divided, that does kind of pave the way for Republicans to win. But at the same time, Republicans, they're also divided. And when we weren't divided, we were still losing. And that was because there was this dominance within the Democratic Party from centrists and neoliberals. So what I think is going to happen, because look, I'm someone who criticizes the left all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that this is an important conversation that we have to have for the heart and soul of the Democratic Party. And either, I think one of two things is going to happen. Either eventually we'll unite behind Bernie Sanders or a progressive, because I would never unite behind a corporatist. I know you guys wouldn't either. So that's not going to happen. So if centrists unite behind Bernie Sanders, let's say hypothetically he becomes the nominee in 2020, that could potentially heal all wounds. Or another thing that could happen is we see mass party realignment. I think that a lot of centrists may be pushed out of the party and move over to the Republican Party. And then you see the more fringier elements of the Republican Party, like the Roy Moores, you know, even the Ted Cruzes, may be pushed out into a Tea Party type of wing within that party. And that could happen. You know, party realignment, it's rare, but it does happen. I think we're headed towards basically the floodgates being opened. But I don't know what's going to pour out of the floodgates. I don't know what that's going to look like, but something big is going to happen. And meanwhile, it is the case that, yes, it is, you know, this is something that Republicans like. They love that the left is fighting each other.
Yeah, they love see us basically eating ourselves and destroying each other.
Right.
Well,
but it is a fight that we have to have. Because
I agree, yeah.
I think that if we don't get our shit together, then they're going to have even more opportunities down the road. Because even if it's the case that, you know, we have this blue wave in 2018 and 2020, well, if the Democratic Party doesn't fundamentally change the way that they do business, then we're going to see this pendulum swing back and forth again to Republicans and Democrats. And it's always going to be, well, I'm sick of Republicans, so I'll vote Democrat. Well, I'm sick of Democrats, so I'll vote Republicans. And unless we really have this battle once and for all, and change the party or have that party collapse and something else pop up to replace the Democrats, then we're not going to see long-term change. Because if we really want these sweeping policies like Medicare for all and whatnot, we can't just keep going back and forth between Democrats and Republicans. Yeah. We can't just have the status quo. Because if we pass Medicare for all hypothetically, well, then when Republicans win in 8 years, after we have 8 years of another Democrat, then they're going to try to repeal it. And it's just going to go back and fucking forth. We need a New Deal, but not necessarily with those old policies, just with different types of policies, with a party that protects the New Deal and will go to bat for the New Deal, and an opposition party that's so afraid to even question the New Deal, like Republicans were before, that even Republicans will run and not even mention repealing Medicare for all or this New Deal that we come up with. That's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you know, you can say Republicans are laughing at us, and yeah, they probably are. But, you know, remember, it wasn't too long ago we were laughing at them when all that stuff was going on with the Tea Party and their infighting. And look at how it turned out. And you know, look at the election results as of recent. I mean, look at you know what happened in Virginia.
Yeah, Lee Carter.
You know, I mean, look at what's going on, where these people were told by the Democratic establishment they were too progressive. They ran as a socialist and won anyway. You know, a bubbling is happening. And, you know, but we have to be clear about what's going on here. You know, the Democratic establishment taking credit for some of the progressive victories that have happened. That's like a school bully taking credit when someone they bullied their whole life goes on to do something awesome. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, we chase you home. We beat you up and chase you home every day. Now you're a track star. You owe that to us.
You owe that to us. I mean, that's exactly what's
your
going on here. And I think we need to realize that a lot of people are on our side. I mean, you know, 15% of Democrats approve of the direction the party's going in. 15. You know, more people are identifying as independent than ever before. Young people have little to no confidence in our entire political structure and are more progressive, or they're the other side and they're libertarian. You know, the status quo is completely broken. So I think in order to have a productive conversation, you need to keep it focused on causes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like don't come at me if you're more in the center. Don't come at me with don't ask me to defend every fart Bernie Sanders has blew. I'm not interested in that. I don't give a shit. I really don't. But we can talk about policies. We can go one policy at a time. If you're against single payer, tell me something better. If you're going to give me that bullshit right-wing verbiage that we need a baby step, we had our baby step. It was the Affordable Care Act. If you're going to tell me you're against affordable college, tell me why that's not essential for a democratic society, because it is. And if you're going to use a right-wing talking point like, well, I don't want Trump's kids to go to college for free, I'm going to say, look, you sound like you belong on Rush Limbaugh's show, not in a conversation with people that want actual status quo change in this country. If you don't want the status quo to change in this country, well, then say that. But if that's the case, go over to the Republicans, because you're clearly not part of the party of FDR, which is what the Democrats need to become again. They're not the party now. They need to go back to that if they want any chance of survival. The last revolution in this country on the national scale was the Reagan Revolution. It was a revolution in the wrong direction. We're ready for another one. So those are the causes that you talk about to people, and if people aren't on board with them, well then, they should want Trump in 2020 then.
Yeah. Most people are on board with what you're talking about. Like if you go out and you talk to people just on the street and just, and you pose the issues like you pointed out, most people agree on most of this shit. Like people do want healthcare. Like that's like almost every American believes that all Americans should have some form of coverage. Like that's not, I mean, it's the elites, man. It's the talking heads on TV that give us this perception that this is big fight. It's not a big fight. It's just that people are not getting the message about what the issues really are. And once they get those ideas and we spend the time to educate them, you'll see more. I don't believe that there's bigger riff as we think. I think we just got Rachel Maddow, we got MSNBC, CNN, talking heads giving us the perception that they have all this support because they have the microphone. They got the podium, so it sounds like they're killing it. But they ain't killing it, man. Go out and talk to people. I go out in D.C. I do on the street. I do on the street interviews when it's warm. Not now. and people they may even voted for Trump, but they want health care, yo. Like they just didn't like Hillary. Like there's so I'm very optimistic. And also when we talk about this, do you mean as in like my platform? I hit Republicans and Democrats. I hit on issues. That's what I try to do. And I think if we do that, we will continue to raise awareness because I have Trump voters who watch me. Oh yeah, I've never voted Republican.
The Jimmy Dore show does too, and I mean, and I get people on my stream and on my podcast. Let's keep in mind why Trump won. Trump won because a stoned kid in Russia bought a Facebook ad. No, I'm just kidding. Trump won because he sold this idea of Republican populism, and it was this kind of everyman populism. It was fake. It was a lie, but people bought into it. What that says to me is that real populism has a chance to connect with people. Real populism, that really is for the working class. I mean, people even say our progressive movement has more in common with the 30s than it does with the neoliberalism fake progressive movement that had been going on, pretty much since the 70s until now. And that's because it has to, because we've reached a point of crisis. Whenever you reach a point of crisis, a status quo needs to take a 180. And if Donald Trump isn't a point of crisis, what the fuck wake up call do we need?
If we don't destroy mainstream media and we don't interrupt the transmission, the world is fucked. That's the way I look at it. I believe they're the problem, not the Republicans, not the conservatives. I believe it's the MSNBCs, the CNNs. They're the problem.
Everybody really, honestly, everybody thinks that Trump, he's going to destroy everything. Like everybody thinks if we get rid of Trump, everything is going to be puppies and rainbows. Everything's going to be wonderful. Like, who thinks like that, man? People can't be that stupid. It's
Establishment Democrats do.
Yeah, they think everything was hunky-dory until Trump got here. Meanwhile, it's the opposite. It's our system that led us to this demagogue.
They don't know, though, Ron. Like the average person has no idea, and they're just being lied to every day. A system's in place that tells them it's built to fool them into thinking everything was great. People don't know we've been in war. Like, Obama took us to war in 7 different places. Then we dropped bombs until we ran out of fucking bombs. I tell that to people, and they go, what the fuck? People get mad at me.
Yeah.
Pissed off, man. My wife voted for Obama. She's like, what? She was crying when I was telling her.
Wow.
No, he's a fake. Look, it took a year. And she's my wife.
Yeah.
Of me doing these shows and me talking and doing post conversations, because it causes friction.
Yeah.
If you are, look, I'm trying to tell you, man, Obama was a big deal to the Black community. It meant so much just to be able to say to kids, you can one day grow up, be president, like that whole thing. And for them to realize that they used the thing that you thought would be part of your not exoneration, your freedom, the ending of your depression, your coming of equality against you, like a judo move when they use your they use your momentum against you and then body slam you with the shit. That's what Obama did. And when you start letting people know that, when you really let them know it, without offending them, without when you do it's kind, you take the bandage off, God, man, it is an eye-opening experience, man. It's something. It's like them realizing that I don't know, they're puppies, are babies first. I don't know, man. It's a monumental experience. It's very emotional for people when they realize, what's happening. They have no idea.
But for you, Tim, being a Black man, did you ever think like, President Obama became president? That's great. That's wonderful. It's a great experience. It's a great thing to see as a Black man. But did you ever think like, wow, a Black man not helping the Black community? Let's say hypothetically, one issue, not being in favor of legalizing marijuana, for example, issues that Black people are out there, they're fighting for and they're in support of. This Black man is on the other end of that. Did that ever bug you?
Oh, it used to until it bugged me until 2014, 2015 when I realized it's not about that at all. It's just like if you're bought and paid for, you're bought and paid for. It don't matter what color you are. Yeah. So and he has no allegiance to anything other than his own success. And that's what people do who want to be a part of the machine. They go along. I've worked with these type of guys in corporate America though, because I've worked at like Lockheed Martin, Verizon, big corporations. So I'm used to guys like that. You think they're really cool. Hey, what's up, man? And it's a boo boo, boo boo, boo boo, boo boo. You thought it was a cool guy, but he just looks like cool. And then when you look over, you see a white guy who you think you got nothing in common with, and you got everything in common with them. So I'm used to that experience here in DC, where it's so diverse. People from all over the world come here and work in government contracting. But yeah, man, it is tough for others though, because they see it through a lens of race. And and what does it say? Like if you got, like I tell people sometimes, it's like sometimes I'm cautious when I hit people like Joy Reid, but I gotta, because Ron can't always hit it the way he wants. Like I have a responsibility as a Black progressive to hit Black lying bastards on the neoliberal side of the game. I gotta, because they're gonna always call you racist. Yep. And if I don't do it, they'll call me coon, but that's a little bit different. Like that's only really derogatory in the Black community to the rest of the world. But racist, they start calling you racist. That really shuts down conversation. So I have an obligation to call that shit out. But I'm also keenly aware, if you got Rachel Maddow selling out, well, damn. I mean, she doesn't have to. Why does she have to sell out? I feel, Melissa, Joy Reid gets $1 million. Rachel Maddow gets $7 million. And they're both selling out. They're both selling this all up the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you said kind of resonated with me, Tim, because I kind of feel the responsibility too. Like when the Human Rights Campaign endorsed Hillary Clinton over Bernie, that honestly blew my mind, because it was absurd to me. Bernie Sanders has this long history of supporting the LGBT community. I mean, he basically was willing to commit career suicide, or what should have theoretically been career suicide, when he was the mayor of Burlington and came out in favor of gay pride parades and legalizing gay marriage. So I thought it was so weird when they endorsed him. And I felt personally inclined to come out and speak out, on behalf of my community, saying this is not right. This is just, the president of HRC shilling for Hillary Clinton, the other HRC. So yeah, I think that what you said there, it makes so much sense. But before we wrap up, does anybody want to bring up any other issues? Because I know we're getting close towards the end here. I know that Kevin wanted to bring up Susan Sarandon and whatnot.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about that really quick?
Yeah, so if some of you may have heard, there was an article written in The Guardian about Susan Sarandon, about her whole vote for for Jill Stein and stuff, and how she's getting a lot of, death threats from Hillary supporters and stuff. I don't know, do you guys have any comments on that? Because I thought that was really, really fascinating. And I read the whole article, and I thought it was very eye-opening. And I feel so sorry for that woman, because I don't know she didn't do anything wrong, so I don't know.
I mean, I feel like it's more representative of any idea that's not, how do I put it? I wouldn't even say mainstream, but any idea that kind of goes against the established discourse, which is Donald Trump is so terrible, and it's because of people that didn't vote for Hillary Clinton and third-party voters, and someone like Susan Sarandon represents that, because she was so vocal about the fact that she did believe Hillary was dangerous, and she did believe that she would lead us to war. And bringing that up again in the midst of this quote unquote devastation that the Donald Trump presidency has been for so many people kind of hits a nerve, I think. And
what is it though?
But then people aren't looking at what she's actually saying, which a lot of it is very legitimate.
But do they really think that she influenced, I don't know how many millions of people to...
Of course. Obviously, one celebrity, Susan Sarandon, obviously is more powerful than, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and the other 500 celebrity endorsements that Hillary Clinton got. Because, celebrities, guys, are the people that actually get politicians elected. Not people, not workers in the Rust Belt states, not millennials, not, nobody. You gotta court celebrities.
You have to follow the power trail, all right? And the power lies with actresses and environmentalists and Facebook ads that about 300 people saw. You add those 300 people up, that's a lot of... who doesn't have power? The DNC. They're just poor average folks trying to get by, trying to conduct an honest primary. They don't have much power. They're not doing anything. Come on. Follow the power trail. No, Susan Sarandon tweeted at me recently, and I think I might still be blushing. I'm not sure, but
that's nice.
Hopefully, we're gonna get her on the Jimmy Dore show.
Yeah, man. Fuck.
Yeah, man.
I like that she's not kind of going into her cave. She's fighting back.
I know.
I love it.
Yeah,
because usually people she's just hitting back at everybody.
I got a minor crush on her, man. She's like three times my age. I love that woman.
Yeah, Susan Sarandon, I just want to interject. She's a really great human being as well.
Yeah.
She's one of the people that kind of helped me really take my show to another level, because back in the beginning of the 2016, I did a video about Bernie Sanders, and she really loved that video. She pinned it on her Facebook page. Wow. And it drove a lot of traffic my way. Then we started corresponding, and she followed me on Twitter, and she even gave to my show once. So
I want to see that video. What is that video?
Dude, she's phenomenal. So that's just like personal. That's on the table. But anyone I've been fighting for so long against people who try to scapegoat Susan Sarandon. It's not just her. They do the same thing with Shailene Woodley, Josh Fox. I mean, they've done this with so many of us. Make us the focal point of their outrage of Hillary's being the most horrible one of the most horrible candidates in history. Yep. It's just disingenuous as hell, and I'm looking forward to her coming on your show, Ron, and I'm also looking forward to the revolution really happening. Yeah, and I think it still can really happen, but like I said, we got to get rid of the neoliberals. We really got to punish them. We got to use every bit of our voices, all our voices, because they're really what's in the way. I believe. I think that the Trump supporters that would call my show, because I used to open my phone lines every night. And I would have people calling in from all over the country, and they would be like, hey, I would vote for Bernie, but I would never vote for Hillary. Adamant, that's the deal. So I believe it, and I think she was right, and we're gonna keep fighting.
Yeah. And there were people that voted for Obama that voted for Trump.
Hell yeah.
I mean, think about that. That's crazy, and it's a great thing to see, and it's great to see that people aren't committed to that specific party line. They're just like, you know what? This is the person I'm voting for because of, issues, and obviously I thought Obama.
I do not like Trump. I think Trump is a lying, a snake oil salesman.
Yeah.
He's a brander in chief, is what he is.
Yeah.
And I think some people misinterpret him with 3D chess, 4D chess. Nah, man, he's about Trump. you know, he's about himself. He always has been his entire life. That's what he's been about, you know. So, but luckily he's less efficient than Mike Pence.
I know. Yeah, please, no Pence, please. Pence loves Dick Cheney. If Mike Pence gets in there, we're fucked even more. I guarantee.
We're fucked either way, guys.
Guys, can I ask one last question? So I'm going to be co-hosting this show tomorrow, and one of the people that we're interviewing is, I don't know the name of the congressman, Adriana Espila or something. He's actually the first undocumented congressman. Like the person that came here as an undocumented citizen and then became a citizen, and now he's a congressman. So it's pretty amazing. But he's also the one that has introduced articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. What do you think I should ask him?
Does he feel like he's wasting his time and energy?
Yeah.
Because
what do you think about Mike Pence?
Yeah, I want to know about Mike Pence.
I want to know. I really want to know.
I mean, I think the chances of it going through are so slim to none. I mean, I think it's just a political football. And there's so many better, more productive things people
I don't think it's that slim. I think the chances are pretty good. I mean, he's broken the emoluments clause. He has like businesses where he's trying to pass legislation that benefits his businesses. That's what every Republican does. How many of them have been impeached? Yeah. Okay. Well.
No. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't think so. I mean, and like I said, I think it would be a bad move politically too, because then we would get Pence.
Yeah. No, I agree.
What's worse than an incompetent psychopath? A competent psychopath. So yeah, and I know we're all in agreement on that. But yeah, I think just from every angle, it is a complete waste of time and resources. You may want to ask a more diplomatic question than the one I just gave you. I don't know. It's up to you. But
thank you.
Well, what are you going to ask him? What were you going to ask him, Elise?
Well, I mean, there are kind of scripted questions, but I definitely want to go outside of that and challenge him a little bit.
And
that is exactly what I had in mind. Do you honestly think that America's problems are going to go away after you impeach Donald Trump and you get a Vice President Pence? Give me a break.
Oh, Mike's good.
Well, you know
where can we watch this?
Real quick, Alicia, a suggestion. What I've done is I tweeted to my audience. I use Twitter and ask people, hey, have you got suggestions for questions? Because I'm interviewing down in Brazil in a couple weeks.
Oh,
amazing!
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Thank you. I'm in this, but it's a lot of pressure, though. You know, like I was like, because if I don't ask the right questions, people will be like, "Oh God, Tim's a sellout." So I don't want that shit. Who needs that in their life, right? So I'm going to. So I got my community. I'm like, look, send questions. Send questions. Yeah. So if you tweet me, I will retweet it, and I'm sure everyone else will retweet to get you some more questions going before your show.
Oh, wonderful! Thank you so much, Tim. And I'll send you the link, Mike, to the show. It's going to be
okay. Cool.
Facebook
because I want
to see YouTube and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll all share it too. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thanks for the independent community support, guys.
Hell yeah.
How we survive.
In Brazil, we have
yeah, exactly. In Brazil, we have an expression that says "tamo junto," which means we're in it together.
Yeah,
so,
I like that. I like that. Well, that's a good place to end it right there. But before we go, of course, we want to make sure that everyone knows where to find all of our participants. So, Tim, tell us where we can find more of you.
Oh, man. Go to TimBlackTV.com. I'm as Real Tim Black on Facebook and Twitter, folks.
All right. Ron Placone.
At Ron Placone on Twitter, and ronplacone.com is my website that has links to everything you can catch me on.
All right. And Elise.
I'm on Twitter as well, but I'm not very good at Twitter. So you guys should look for me on Facebook. I'm at facebook.com/I am Alicia New, which spells like Alice because it's Portuguese. Yeah. Alice Aniu, ANIL.
All right. And Kevin.
Please go to my Facebook, facebook.com/ProgBlacksmith, twitter.com/ProgBlacksmith. I just started my new podcast, so please go to my YouTube page as well, youtube.com/ProgBlacksmith, and it's all there.
Perfect. And I'm Mike Figueredo. You can follow me on Twitter at Humanist Report or go to humanist.report.com. So that ends our show, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time.